If you have a student debt in Australia, you probably spent most of last year watching the headlines with a mix of hope and total confusion. You heard about a 20% reset, a new marginal system, and the end of the dreaded indexation spikes. But now that we're in 2026, the dust has finally settled and the numbers are actually in your ATO app. Today, I'm going to break down the biggest overhaul to the HECS-HELP system in 40 years. We're going to look at exactly how that 20% reduction works, the new $67,000 safety net, and why your paycheck might look a little different this month. Let's start with the big one, the 20% reset. According to the latest 2026 ATO data, the government has finished applying a one-off 20% reduction to all student loan balances that existed on June 1, 2025. This wasn't just a discount on future study, it was a retroactive cut to your existing debt. If you had a $30,000 balance, the ATO literally wiped $6,000 off the books. But here is the hidden insight most people missed. The timing was everything. The 20% reduction was applied to your balance before the 2025 indexation was added. This means the indexation, which we now know was capped at the lower of wages or inflation, was calculated on a much smaller number. For the average Australian with a $26,000 debt this combined move effectively shaved about $5,500 to $6,000 off their total balance. If you haven't checked your myGov inbox lately, you should have a notification from late 2025 or early 2026 confirming your new, lower balance. Now, let's talk about the change that actually affects your weekly budget, the new marginal rates. This is the part of the $30,000 lie we've discussed before, but applied to debt. Under the old system, HECS repayments were a cliff. If you earned $1 over the threshold, you had to pay a percentage of your entire income. It was a massive penalty for getting a small pay rise. In the 2025-2026 financial year, that cliff is gone. We have moved to a marginal repayment system, exactly like how our income tax works. For this year, the minimum repayment threshold has been jacked up to $67,000. Under the old rules, it was roughly $54,000. That is a $13,000 buffer that the government has added to protect lower-income earners from the cost of living squeeze. But the real magic is in how the repayment is calculated. You now only pay a percentage on the dollars you earn above that $67,000. If you're earning $70,000 a year, you aren't paying a percentage of $70,000 anymore. You are paying 15 cents for every dollar over the $67,000 mark. In the old system, someone on $70,000 would have been losing about $1,750 a year. Under the new 2026 marginal system, that same person only pays about $450. That is $1,300 back in your pocket over the year, or about $25 a week extra for groceries or your offset account. However, there is a catch you need to be aware of if you're a high earner. This marginal relief starts to taper off as you climb the ladder. Once your income hits $179,286, the system reverts back to the old 10% of total income rule. The government's logic is that if you're in the top 5% of earners, you don't need the marginal protection. So, if you're a senior developer or a specialist doctor, don't expect a windfall. This reform was designed specifically to help the squeezed middle, the teachers, nurses, and tradies earning between $60,000 and $120,000. Another critical 2026 update is the indexation cap. After the 7.1% disaster of a few years ago, the law has officially changed. Indexation is now permanently capped at the lower of the Consumer Price Index, CPI, or the Wage Price Index, WPI. For 2026, the indexation rate has been confirmed at 2.8%. This is a massive win because it ensures your debt can never grow faster than the average Australian's wages. Your debt is finally being tamed. So what should you do with this information? First, check your payroll. Because the repayment thresholds moved so significantly on July 1, 2025, your employer should have adjusted the amount of tax they withhold. If you're earning $65,000, they should have stopped taking HECS out of your pay entirely. If they haven't, you're essentially giving the ATO an interest-free loan until you lodge your 2026 tax return. You can fix this by submitting a new withholding declaration form to your HR department. Second, reevaluate voluntary repayments. For years, the advice on this channel was don't pay off HECS early because it was the cheapest debt you'd ever have. With the 20% reduction and the new 2.8% indexation, that advice is even stronger in 2026. If you have spare cash, putting it into a high-interest savings account earning 5% or into your mortgage offset account is a much smarter move than giving it to the ATO. You are effectively earning the difference between the 5% bank rate and the 2.8% HECS rate. The reframe for 2026 is this. HECS is no longer a monster under the bed. With the 20% cut and the marginal repayment system, it has moved from being a significant financial burden to a manageable graduate tax. If you're one of the lucky ones who saw their balance hit zero because of the 20% reset, congratulations. But for everyone else, the goal is to let the new system work for you. The $1,300 a year the median worker saves under these new rates isn't life-changing on its own. But if you redirect that $25 a week into an index fund, it becomes $30,000 over a 20-year career. Being behind on your HECS doesn't mean you've failed. It means you've invested in your greatest asset, yourself. And in 2026, the government has finally made that investment a little easier to carry. If you found this valuable, hit subscribe to the channel for more Australian data breakdowns. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.